Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti. So in the text till now, we have covered in section 1, Introduction to Vedanta, we have covered 4 chapters. The role of Vedanta, world and human being, code, life its course, code of living, and we are starting exigency of action today. Role of Vedanta, we discussed about how it is a scientific knowledge which we need to apply and live in our day-to-day living, day-to-day life. Then we discussed about world and human being, where we discussed about how this knowledge of Vedanta is to be understood. First, we need to understand the world. So we have to go from the known to the unknown. So the known is the world, our experiences in the world, and then we go to the unknown reality, which is our personality. So go from the physical body, the mind, the intellect, and go beyond it. So we discussed about the human species, 3 conditions of the mind. The human species, we discussed there are different types of species we have, different categories of species based on the selfishness of human beings. If you remember, most selfish we are, there's mineral human, then we had the human who are completely selfless, a self-realized master. Then we discussed about the 3 conditions of the mind. That's talking about the restless mind, the imperfect mind, and the perfect mind, where we discussed about how the mind has a different nature. An imperfect mind or restless mind is a mind which is never at peace, always complaining, criticizing about the world. The imperfect mind is the mind which is relatively agitated, but it's able to handle itself. When there is a challenge, it's not able to handle, but otherwise it's normal. A perfect mind is what we need to achieve, where at any condition we are able to be in control of our personality. So, spirituality is about being in control of our personality, being in control of the mind. Then we discussed about life, its course, where we discussed about life is made up of an experience. Experience is made up of you and the world. So if I have to improve the quality of the experience, I have to improve the quality of the world and also look into myself. That's what we discussed. Then it was code of living, where we discussed about the scope of spiritual education, the elements of right living, where we discussed at the physical level, be service oriented, at the emotional level, have the pure affection, love, at the intellectual level, seek the knowledge, pure knowledge. And then we discussed about the 3 temperament, which was in last class, sattva, rajas, and tamas. This is more a general introduction to the 3 temperaments. It's coming up in the later text where we go in detail about the 3 nature. So the mind's nature is, it is either grade A, sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. 3 type of the mind, 3 qualities of the mind. Now, we need to move from the tamas to rajas, rajas to sattva. And in the process of moving from tamas to rajas, we tend to get possessive about objects and beings in the world. To that, we said we should not be possessive and we should be objective in life. That's why we discussed about the even this shall pass away, where in and through all activities, we are being objective, not becoming possessive about any aspects of the world. Caste system was the last topic we discussed in the last class, where we discussed that based on these 3 mental temperaments, the categorization of the society was done. People who were more sattvic, they were given the task of education, learning, and educating. People who were more rajasic, they were given the task of controlling, protecting the society. More tamas picked up in the system. They were given the task about business, and more tamas, the maximum tamas, they were the labor class. And the categorization was not to segregate or have any discrimination towards any sector of people. It was created so that each category can progress, move to the higher level of growth as a human being. In other words, even uh, in a Vaishya or a Shudra, one can become better. You can become more and more sattvic in whatever you are doing. The quality of life can be better. The quality of the mind can be better. So that's what we covered in the code of living. Now starts the body, mind, and intellect. At the level of the body, exigency of action. At the level of the mind, strength of emotion. At the level of the intellect, light of wisdom. And then comes the culmination of human life, where we talk about the three gunas and the personality chart. A very interesting portion where it talks about how these gunas operate in our personality. Right? So today we are talking about exigency of action. Action is the insignia of life. Law of life proclaims that none can remain without performing activity. Everyone is made to act helplessly according to one's inner temperament, which we covered earlier. Yet, if you choose to remain idle, you lead yourself to destruction. Nature draws your attention to this law. Observe the stagnant pool and the running brook. Where water stagnates, it turns filthy and dirty. So, action we must, we cannot run away from activity. The point is, how do we act? What is the quality of action? Vedanta helps us to improve the quality of action, to make the action progressive, dynamic. How to use the action to be evolutionary. That's what the whole knowledge is all about. In other words, we all are acting in life. How to act in a way that it helps us to grow as a person. It's not running away from action. There's nothing wrong with action per se. It is the way we conduct ourselves that has to be considered. If I'm agitated and disturbed, if I'm not able to conduct myself properly, if I'm not being able to be dynamic, there's something wrong in my approach to action. And that's what we are talking about, that action is not the problem. It is the way we conduct ourselves, approach to the action. So action is inevitable. That's the insignia of life. The law of life is that none can remain without acting. So river keeps moving, and that's why it is fresh. A stagnant water gets it is it's not fresh. It becomes toxic because it is not able to keep moving in life. Moment there is stagnation in life, moment we do not apply ourselves in our day-to-day life, it becomes constant, it becomes a problem, it is not progressive for us anymore. We are acting, we have to act, but that particular action, that particular area is not helping us to become better because we are not applying ourselves. It is as good as not acting. Better we don't act. So we must pursue the path of action until we reach the abode of truth. The Bhagavad Gita highlights the gospel karma, action, emphasizes the importance of fulfilling your obligatory functions in life. So, Swami Vivekananda, he instills about his follower, go play football. You know what he is trying to say? Spirituality is seen to be resignation from society. It is understood, if I have to be spiritual, I can't be doing the regular things. I have to get away from action. I have to get away from people. I have to get away from work, whatever I'm doing, regular routine things. Whereas Vedanta says there's nothing like that. where can we go away? Where can we have desires, we have our obligations, we have to perform it. So it's not going away anywhere. It is about wherever we are, how do we conduct ourselves? Go back to the paragraph we did. I think we 2, 3 times we repeated it. Wherever you are, you're best placed for your evolution. So it doesn't matter where we are. It is important that we are able to apply ourselves wherever we are. So, to counter the point that Vedanta or spirituality is not about resignation, he puts across, Swami Vivekananda says, go play football. He says, be dynamic, be active. First, start acting. Exigency of action is saying, but first we have to act, then we have to improve the quality of action. Tamas is where you don't put action at all, you don't want to act at all. Rajas is we act with a lot of agitation, lot of I-ness, minus. And sattva is you act rightly. And that's what he's referring to. So Vedanta insists on work, work, and work. Equally so, it glorifies renunciation. There's an apparent contradiction. How can action and renunciation go together? This doubt goes when one understands the deeper import of the gospel of work. In fact, real work is founded on renunciation. Renunciation of the ego, which is work performed without the egoistic feeling of I am the doer. I am the sole architect of all that I do. Real work is turned out when the body plunges into action while the mind is attuned to the ideal set for it. This is something which is important. So, action is must. But what is to be done, what is to be renounced, what is to be given up is the anxiety of the mind. It is the mind which gets into the worries of the past, anxiety for the future. And that creates a distraction. We are not able to focus in life, focus in our task. So, right action is when the body is acting, physical body is acting, but the mind is attuned to something higher, the goal, the purpose in life. Moment you have an ideal, that's what he says. The greatest ideal in life is realization of the self. Try to attune yourself to the ideal. The concept of ideal is important to note. We all are functioning in the world. We all are acting. Now, what sort of action we are performing? Like we said, action without an ideal. So we all are functioning. We all are acting in life. When we act without a goal, a purpose, with a selfish, self-centered understanding in life, it is like a circle. We keep on going in a circle. And that creates monotony, boredom in life. What Vedanta is saying is to have a higher goal, a higher purpose in life. So this is the benefit of it. When we are working for a higher goal and higher purpose, it is like a spring. X-axis, Y-axis. You're moving higher, and because you're working with that higher ideal in mind, automatically it inspires you, it motivates you, it helps you to be dynamic in life. That's the difference between working with an ideal versus working without an ideal. So, action we all are performing. But if it is mechanically going around, keep on doing whatever we are doing around in the world, it gets into a set of monotony and boredom. Nothing wrong with the work, but the approach to work. Now, how do you apply your intellect in it, in whatever action we are doing? We become more conscious of the action. We apply ourselves, we think differently, we act differently. That's what is meant by having an ideal and working towards it. If you go back, here it says the greatest ideal in life is realization of the self. Now, whatever that reality be, that is beyond the scope of understanding. even a relative ideal. How can I help the society? Each one of us have a unique talent, ability, capacity. Based on my capacity, how can I use my ability to help the society? Do whatever I can in my own way, best way possible. So, action and renunciation, it is not renouncing action, which is evolutionary. It is renouncing the mineness in the action, which is evolutionary. So I need to drop that minus and keep acting with a higher goal. So then the question comes, why will I act? If I don't see, I don't get the energy because I have nothing to do with it. I act because I have a higher goal, a higher purpose to work for. And that gives me the motivation. That gives me the inspiration to work. The highest goal being the self-realization. So whatever that be, beyond our understanding, that pure consciousness that we are, that divinity, what they're saying is reality alone exists. Consciousness alone exists. We have believed ourselves to be this individuality, and through that individuality, we are functioning in the world. Spirituality is using action to get back to the state of reality. That is evolution. That's karma yoga. Karma means action. Yoga in Sanskrit means to unite, started from the yuj, the root yuj. We will be covering it in later class. So, karma yoga simply means evolutionary action, path of action to evolve. Now, big word, what it implies is being able to act with that attitude of service and sacrifice. Moment I open the door, I'm able to say, after you. When you're driving, let the other person go. When you're in the queue, let the other person go first. That attitude in life makes you spiritual. You come first. The question is, if I let everybody go first, I'll never be there in the equation. I'll always be behind. The law is, if you are capable, if you're qualified, stone which is fit on the wall will never be lying on the floor. If you have the capacity and ability to be the best, you will not be unnoticed. Don't have to make noise about it. Automatically, wherever you are, a diamond will be seen. It doesn't have to prove itself to anybody. So the point is, work on becoming the diamond. So when we are focused on ourselves, when we are focused on improving the quality of our actions, automatically the rest is taken care of. So how do we improve the quality of action? By having a higher goal, a higher purpose, and ideal in life. And that's what this graph is talking about. So if we do not have a goal and ideal, we keep on doing mechanical things and we are never find inspiration in that action. Moment we are able to have that high understanding and function, automatically we feel inspired, we feel motivated, we are peaceful, we are happy, and that is progressive living. That is spiritual living. Right. So, try to attune yourself to that ideal. When your mind is directed to the self within and your body is engaged in the earnest work, you rise above the little self. Your ego gradually disappears. The idea of I and mine drops off. You are the greatest worker when you consider yourself as no worker. You become a mere instrument of the divine self. You then generate harmony, peace, love within or and without. Now, this is basic knowledge, simple understanding. What can I really do? Any one of us. I cannot achieve anything without the contribution of thousands of people behind me. Okay? Wherever I am, whoever I am. Now, to not recognize that is ego. ego comes in that I am the doer, I am supreme, I am the great, I am the most important one, which has no meaning. It's completely out of ignorance. To understand that to pull off any activity, there has to be a contribution of thousands of people, millions of people. Without that, it cannot happen. And that understanding puts me in the pedestal where the I and mine is drop off, and you become the greatest contribution. You become a resource for the society. Moment I drop that I-ness and minus, automatically people seek you, people want you. That is what is required in the society, not the egoistic way of functioning. So the idea of working in a spirit of renunciation has confused people. Even today, this concept is misunderstood, much less appreciated as a way of life. People either become attached, entangled in their work, or cowardly escape from it. You must realize that action is inevitable. You cannot avoid your obligatory functions. In the epic Mahabharata, the battle was fought between the two royal forces. Arjuna and was a warrior prince leading one of the armies. He aimed to destroy the unrighteousness and resurrecting righteousness in the country. That stage was set for the battle to commence. At the crucial moment, Arjuna wanted to withdraw from the scene. The warrior declined to fight. He shrank from his obligatory duty. He appealed to Lord Krishna if he could leave the battlefront. So, art of right action, how the role of action embraces the principle of renunciation. Krishna advised Arjuna to renounce his egoistic feeling and fight the battle impersonally for the welfare of the people. So, Arjuna, why he was not able to act? Because he personalized the entire problem, entire war. He was seeing his friends, he was seeing his teacher, he was seeing his family members on the other side. Whereas Krishna says that was never in the equation. That was never the purpose of the war. The war was to, uh, not for his personal gains. It was to resurrect righteousness in the society. There was unrighteousness going on, and to resurrect righteousness is the purpose of the war, whereas he is just a medium. Arjuna is just a medium to pull it off. Now, he has no business to personalize and see it from his own angle. He just needs to perform his action. Gita pressed the role of action in the spiritual path. Yet in India considers text more for retired and old. Ironically, the Gita subtle principle of action are practiced more beyond the shores of India. Here is a knowledge which is talking about how to be dynamic, how to be active in life. That's the whole idea. So we discussed about the stagnation. We discussed how the egoistic feeling, which actually drains you, and when it is a dedicated action, renouncing your ego and egocentric desires, automatically it is evolutionary. And that's the message from the Bhagavad Gita. And Swami Vivekananda is talking about being active and dynamic in life. Now, if you talk about the value of action, you're saying human beings must keep pace with the march of time if they are to survive in the struggle of existence. Mere acquisition of knowledge would not suffice. Knowledge comes from the past, it has to be translated currently into action. Thoughts and ideas must be transformed into deeds. Your motto in life should be to strive to struggle, not to succeed. A very interesting idea being given. Your motto in life has to be to strive to struggle, not to succeed. Now, when he says not to succeed, it means not to be focused on success. The purpose in life has to be to put that right cause, that right effort from our side, not to be focused on the effect, what comes out of it, the fruit, if it is happening or not happening. That's none of my business. So, a motto in life has to be to strive to struggle, not to succeed, to focus on the struggle part of it. Any service is always accompanied with a sacrifice. Service comes with sacrifice. Now, what do we mean by that? You cannot operate without sacrificing your comfort. If I have to grow in life, I have to go beyond my comfort zone. If I want to be always in my area of comfort, that is not progress. So when I'm serving, automatically I'm thinking in terms of others. That is service, right? Service is in terms of how can I add value? How can I make a difference in others' life? Right? So when I'm thinking in terms of others, there will be an area which I have to compromise in terms of my comfort, my uh, area of known. I'm going to the unknown realm, unknown area where I'm getting in because I believe it can help a larger set, larger community. So automatically there is a sacrifice of my way of doing things, sacrifice of my comfort zone, sacrifice of my things which I'm okay with. I may have to choose things, people who may I not be comfortable with, but still I have to perform it because that is the way I need to progress. By doing that, I can contribute myself. I can see when I'm working in a team, there'll be different types of people. I can't expect everybody to be according to what I think I want in life. There's a sacrifice. What is sacrifice? I understand them and I'm sacrificing my way of doing things. I'm adjusting according to their way of doing things. I'm not sacrificing my values and principles, what I believe in, but I'm sacrificing the execution part of it. I may have to do that. But it is more, that is a struggle, to strive to struggle. So that is never that, okay, when will I be successful? That's not the focus, not to succeed. Just be in the struggle. That becomes your bounden duty. Work on for work's sake. Learn to be indifferent towards pleasure or pain, joy or sorrow, honor or dishonor that may occur out of action. So, pleasure and pain at the physical level, joy or sorrow at the emotional level, honor and dishonor at the intellectual level. So, at the physical, emotional, intellectual level, whatever comes, I'm able to be objective and be in the struggle, be in the action. That's what he means by your motto in life has to be to strive, to struggle, not to succeed. Your life is enriched by accomplishment of right action rather than outward success or failure. Take up your work with no axe to grind. Do what you ought to do in life. Go about in an independent spirit. Work then becomes a pleasure. Pleasure and happiness lies in the garb of work. This is possible only when we surrender to the total plan of nature. When we understand the laws of life, how does it work? You get what you deserve, not what you desire, like we earlier said. So the focus is on performing the action in the right way, the best way possible. You are trying to take away all the inner distraction of the mind. You're able to focus all the ego. We already discussed that. Take out that from the equation. Pure action, just performing what you need to do, what I ought to do. If you're a plumber, do plumbing. If you're a teacher, teach, preacher, preach. Whatever task we are assigned to do, we do it the best of our ability. No prefix, no suffix. That is pure action. Moment we have an agenda in that action, we are coloring that action. That makes it impure action. That creates problem. So surrender to the total plan of nature. Thy will be done should be your attitude in work, not my will be done. It's a very beautiful saying. Tera tujhko arpan, kya lage hai mera. That attitude in life where you surrender everything to the totality. Whatever ought to be done, do it. But there is no I-ness minus in the equation. And this is what he is referring to. Surrender to the total plan of nature. When you remove that ego and selfishness in the action, automatically you are operating as if on behalf of the reality, divinity. That is pure action on behalf of the nature. Nature is working through you, as it were. That's what it comes down to. So, surrendering to the total plan of nature and act with the attitude of thy will be done, not my will be done. When your selfish desires and clinging renders your business and life mundane, work without attachment and craving is worship. That is the principle of renunciation. Why have any motive in work? Work itself is most rewarding, entertaining, blissful. Employ the simple principle of work in practical life. The wide world becomes your temple. All your activities becomes one divine chant. When you thus begin to work in a spirit of renunciation, the world returns your courtesy. Wealth and prosperity are at your door. That is the law. More you give, more you get. That is the law. More you serve, more you are served. That's the law. Now, what happens is we want to serve ourselves. That's why every time we have to keep doing things for ourselves. Moment we start functioning for others, surrender to the total plan of nature, and act with that genuine attitude of service and sacrifice, everything starts falling in place. That's an automatic reaction. That's an automatic repercussion, effect of action, pure action. So remember, work is your creation. You impose duties upon yourself, but you are the ultimate master. Duty need not lord over you. You are your own lord. Not realizing this, you turn pale at the thought of duty, become a machine of duty. Frankenstein, here it says of Frankenstein of a duty. So what happens in life is, have you seen those that Atlas, the picture of Atlas, where there is a globe which is on his head, on his shoulder, and his there. Now, we take to life as if everything is on our shoulder. We are responsible for everything. I have to do it. If I don't do, it will be, how will it happen? The fact is, even if I'm not there, the world will live happily without me, perhaps better. There's no big deal about it. Only point is, how do I conduct myself? I have an obligation. I have a place in the society. Having wherever I am, how can I perform the best of my interest without any axe to grind? That is action with renunciation, renouncing our egocentric desires, with genuine interest in others. That action will never create this attitude of a burden. We never feel a burden because that is self-created. Frankenstein is a self-created machine. There was a story, it was a book, and there was a movie on that. So Frankenstein, he created a machine, and the machine started dictating terms to him. Similarly, we create duties and responsibility, and we get overpowered by it. We can't function without it. We start believing for our living, that is all is important. Nothing like that. Duties and responsibilities threaten you, harass you day in and day out. You have created a Frankenstein of duty. This is ridiculous. Remember, your self-imposed duties and responsibilities are not indispensable. Remember, your self-imposed duties and responsibilities are not indispensable. If I am not there, work will not be done. Let's take it out of our system. Everything will function without me. So does it mean that I should not act? No, it doesn't mean that. It simply means that I should act the best way possible without carrying that heaviness in me that only I can do it, versus work has to be done. The world can take care of itself. It does not need your help, nor does it wait for your condescension. The world will go on and on. Nevertheless, work must you perform. You ought to take to work like a prince takes to sport, not as a drudgery or burden. Your life is one big game full of fun and frolic. The most laborious undertaking pursued in the right spirit is found to be a play, all play. Intense work undertaken thus is no work at all. That should be your attitude to work. Intense work is rest. That's the statement by Swami Ramatirtha. He says, self-realized master, he says, intense work is rest. Somebody asked to him in US, sir, what is Vedanta? What is active? What is peace? Peace of mind. How do I get peace of mind? He says, when you are acting intensely, you are restful. That is the definition of rest. In other words, the physical body is active, but the mind is peaceful because the intellect is focused on a higher goal, a higher purpose, an ideal. So, moment we approach action with that attitude of doing what ought to be done without any ego and egocentric desires, automatically we don't get overpowered, burdened by that action, and we become peaceful and happy. That gives us motivation in life. Action performed in the spirit of detachment leads you to the state of perfection, to realization of your supreme self. Ironically, the scripture defines self-realization as the state of actionlessness, state of transcending all actions. Actionlessness cannot be gained merely renouncing action, but by acting in the spirit of renunciation. So, perfection in a human being is defined by a state of actionlessness. Now, most people think that to reach that state of actionlessness, I have to stop acting, which is not so. I need to act because I have desires. That's the next topic. It's a very important and useful topic, which is talking about the chronology of action. How does action form? How does it work? So, because of that chronology, you have to act anyway. So, running away from action is not going to solve anything. I can't reach that state of actionlessness by getting away from action. So, comes down to it is being acting with that spirit of renunciation, spirit of detachment, spirit of able to be objective while acting. That is evolutionary action. Moment we get involved, it is devolutionary action. Action we must, we should, we have to. But how to make it evolutionary is by having that approach of objectivity, doing what ought to be done without any axe to grind, without any interest in the future, in the effect, in the fruit, no ego, no selfishness. So, no past, ego, selfishness, no future, fruit, and no, in the present, no high excitement. You cut off all these negativities in the action. What remains is pure action. So, that is evolutionary, that is progressive. Now, any questions? This topic is a very important topic. It's talking about chronology of action. How does an action is formed? An action is a symbol of life. As long as you live, you act. The type of action executed differs from individual to individual. It depends upon the inherent cause that produces it. The root of action is one's innate nature. Every human being is distinctly individualistic, which we covered earlier. Innate nature is based on the gunas. the three sattva, rajas, and tamas. Now, here he is bringing a topic and concept of vasanas. His inherent tendencies, innate bent, nature is known as vasana. Vasana is the result of the past. Past actions produces present vasanas, and the present vasana produces further actions. Vasana is the cause, action is the effect. Again, action becomes the cause, vasana the effect. This cause and effect cycle goes on like the phenomena of tree and seed, hen and egg, etc. So, vasana is the seed. The chronology of action is vasana produces thought. We'll come to that. We'll cover that. Thought produces desires. Desires produces action. So it's vasana, thought, desire, action. So vasana, therefore, is a seed of action, the prime mover in the mechanism of action. The vasana is unmanifested. Action is the final manifestation of the vasana. Each vasana, before reaching its full expression, passes to the stage of thought and desire. In the chronology of action, vasana produces thought, thought produces desire, desire produces action. This is vital. This is important. Vasana produces thought, thought produces desire, desire produces action. Vasana is unmanifested. Vasana is our inherent nature. What is the stuff we are made up of? What is the fundamental nature of each one of us? That is called as vasana. That is unmanifested desires, thoughts and desires. The first level of manifestation is called as thought. So vasana produces thought, which is the first level of manifestation. You have a thought of an object, a being. The next grossification of the thought is called as desire, which is thought flow. It becomes stronger, and that further becomes an action. You act on it. Each one of us have a different way of thinking, living, functioning in the world. Let's say somebody has an interest in music. Other person has an interest in sports. I give the same newspaper, and the person who has a vasana for music will be looking for, his thought is on music. He sees all the news pertaining to music. His desires are on music. He sees there's a concert going on in somewhere. His action is, now he's planning how to attend that concert. Action is for that. A sports person is interested, is his desires, his thoughts and desires are pertaining to sports. He goes to a sports page, he looks into the next match, he looks into where all it's being telecasted, how can he watch it, he's planning, scheming, all that is doing. Can he buy a ticket? Can he go and watch with his friends? All that is happening pertaining to his vasana. Vasana produces thought, thought produces desire, desire produces action. So any action is always preceded by desire to perform it. Any desire is preceded by thought, and thought is always preceded by vasana. So when your vasana manifests, they first appear as thoughts in your intellect. Your intellect therefore entertains thoughts according to the nature of your present vasanas. Your fundamental nature, your temperament, whatever it is, that first manifests into a thought. In the second stage of manifestation, vasana expresses as desire in your mind. Your desires again will be in the nature of your vasanas and thought. So whatever desires you are having, that will be in line with the vasana, your unmanifested desires, and the thoughts you have. So it is in the same direction. Consider an example of a painter. Painter is one who has a vasana for painting. While he's asleep, his vasana remains dormant without expression. When he wakes up, vasana expresses itself in the intellect as thought of painting. The thought manifests in the mind as desire for painting. The desire expresses in the physical body as an action for painting. It follows, therefore, that as long as your vasanas exist, there will be a constant flow of thought, desire, and actions. And when your vasanas are exhausted, your thoughts and desires and actions become extinct. The total exhaustion of vasanas is exalted state of self-realization, described as a state of vasanalessness, thoughtlessness, desirelessness, actionlessness. People have misconstrued their state to mean abstinence from action, even as their vasanas remain within. Consequently, they impose physical restraint and deny themselves of material and sensual life, little realizing that vasanas, thoughts, and desires linger within and frustrate their lifestyle. Such practices led to suppression rather than sublimation of the personality. So we need to deal with our desires, with our personality. So vasana creates thought, thought creates desire, desire creates action. This is the chronology of action. Now, what they're saying is we are in exigency of action. So, action we have to perform. Nobody can run away from action. Why? Because we already have desire for action. We are born with desire. So, we cannot run away from action. We have to perform action. We already have thoughts, we already have vasanas. So, since the subtle aspect is already there, by merely stopping to act is not renunciation. By renouncing action is not evolution. Because this sequence has to be followed. Vasana, thought, desire, action. That's a sequence. So what happens innocently without knowledge, what we do is we get into the loop of action creates further vasanas. We are acting, nothing wrong with action, but we act with desire-ridden action. I want it. So that creates further vasanas. And then again, I get into a loop of that vasana creates thought, desire, action. I go to Niagara Falls. I love to, I heard about it. I created desire for it. I never knew about Niagara Falls. I saw somewhere, had a thought of it, I had a desire for it. I wanted to experience it myself. I acted on it. I went and saw the Niagara Falls. It ended there? No. What I did is, I started taking pictures. I started reliving it. I started re-enjoying it. All virtual. I left the place. I was there for some time. I left the place. I'm no more there. But I'm talking about it. I'm trying to re-experience what I went through. In the bargain, what I'm doing is, I'm creating further vasanas. Now I want all my family members to come. I want my partner to come. I want my children to experience. I created vasanas. Now that will have its own thought, desire. Again, I have to act on. Again, I create further vasanas, thought, desire, action. So I keep on getting into a loop because I keep on acting on my own vasana, thought, desire. And while acting, I'm not able to be objective enough. And that's what he meant by renunciation. Dropping the ego. Renunciation is where you act for the sake of action. I am placed in a particular position, so I perform that action. So when I'm able to act in a particular way, automatically, without any axe to grind, no prefix, no suffix, because there is no prefix and suffix, that is pure action, and that action has no residue. like birds flying in the sky. They don't leave footmarks versus a bird walking on the sand. It leaves a footmark. So when we act with selfish desire, ego, it leaves footmark. It leaves impressions. It creates vasanas. Moment we are able to act independent of selfishness, ego, self-centered desires, automatically we are performing pure activity, pure action. And that's what he's talking about. The mission of human life is to eradicate vasana. So the state of perfection is a state of vasanalessness, state of thoughtlessness, state of desirelessness, state of actionlessness. But you cannot reach that state by not acting. We have to act to reach a state of actionlessness. We have to direct the desires in a proper way to reach a state of desirelessness. We have to shift the thought to reach a state of thoughtlessness. The mission of human life is to eradicate vasanas, thought, and desires. Vasanas form the mass of ignorance that veils the divine self. You attain self-realization. By wiping out the last trace of vasana in you, the knowledge of Vedanta helps you to remove the mass of vasanas and discover yourself. Vasana has been indicated as your inherent nature, but that would not be a proper definition. In truth, Vasana is that which produces the inherent nature. It would be more appropriate to indicate Vasana as being merely a primary cause or source of thought, desire, action. Your intellect can comprehend thought, desire, and action, but cannot comprehend Vasanas, since the intellect is a product of Vasana. So, the intellect Vasana is in the root form, the source. From there, the mind and intellect is manifested. And that further becomes desires and actions. So the intellect cannot conceive vasana because from vasana, intellect is being born, manifested. So a manifested part cannot conceive the unmanifested aspect of the personality. The basic material composition of the human personality is the vasana. You are therefore a substantial form of your insubstantial vasanas. The idea is subtly brought out by the use of camphor in the temple. The temple has a deity in the innermost sanctum surrounded by three enclosures. The sanctum is dark, the small oil lamp burns at the altar of the deity. The priest lights the piece of camphor from it. The camphor burns away to illumine the darkness within. The light reveals the deity to the devotee's vision. The ritual is significant. The temple is designed to represent the human being. The deity in the sanctum stands for the Atman, the self, within you. Self is dark, unknown. To reach the self, you must first cross the limitation of the three material layers of your personality, the body, mind, and the intellect, symbolized by passing through the three enclosures. When you do this, reach your inner core, the preceptor is said to give you the knowledge of the self. The camphor is the solid substance. When exposed to the atmosphere, it sublimates into mere fragrance. Camphor closely resembles vasanas. Vasana is a Sanskrit word derived from its root. Vas means scent, fragrance. Vasana produces your personality trait. So what he's saying is, a pure form of camphor, if you leave it anywhere, it disappears. So you can say that the fragrance, you smell it, but it's not there. The solid form is not there. You can say that that camphor, the piece of camphor, is nothing but fragrance consolidated. Similarly, we are nothing but desires consolidated, which is vasanas. Vasana is another name. It's known as fragrance. So it's referring to that aspect of our personality, the inherent nature from the unmanifested nature is manifested through vasana is just the unmanifested nature, personality. All of us are distinct and different because of the vasanas, also called as causal body. In the later term, we will be using the word causal body, the cause for the body, to understand the concept of vasanas, which is the inner personality. So the temple example he's giving is, in the temple, they are pradakshina we do. 3 times we go around, and to reach the center, the sanctorum, which is dark. The idea is to reach the self, which is beyond the action, desire, thought, body, mind, intellect, vasana. It is beyond the vasana. So to reach that self, the reality, you have to go beyond the body, mind, and intellect and reach that unknown realm. You need the knowledge given by the priest in the sign of light, and that light burns the camphor, and that camphor is burned. Camphor means the vasanas. When you burn the personality, the individuality, what is seen is the reality. That's the implication, that is the significance of burning camphor in the temple. When your vasanas are insubstantial, yet you go to make up the substantial human form. The preceptors help you burn up your vasanas in the fire of knowledge. The process leads you to the goal of self-realization, knowing your real goal. But more important than that is the chronology of action is talking about the sequence of how an action is formed. Any action is formed because of desires. Desire is formed because of thought. Thought is because of vasana. In other words, if I have to improve the quality of desire, automatically the quality of action will improve. Subtler I go, more control I have. Grosser is easier to control. Gross action is easier to understand and apply. Desire is subtler, difficult to understand and operate at. Thought is much more subtle. Vasana you can't operate at. So we have to start from the action, understand, can't run away from action, improve the quality of desire and the thought process, the intention. We talk about intention, the attitude in life, that is referring to the thought. We talk about unselfishness, that is talking about the action. We talk about ideal, goal, a purpose, that's referring to desires. Thank you. We conclude here.